My name is Swami Arjuna. I never believed in God, not once. I believed in the pulse of the brain, the chemistry of thought, the laws that bind the visible world. I believed that everything ended at the grave. Faith, to me, was a fever, a beautiful delusion born from fear. I built my life on that cold certainty. I laughed at the idea of eternity. I mocked the name of Jesus. But certainty dies fast when the heart stops beating. I died once, and in that moment, when all that I worshipped, reason, pride, control, fell away, something vast opened before me. I can still feel the echo of that silence. It wasn't empty. It was alive. It breathed, it waited, it knew me. I never meant to cross that threshold. I wasn't seeking visions. I wasn't looking for truth. I had spent years running from it. Yet, when my body fell away and the machines went still, I found myself standing in a darkness that wasn't dark. So complete it shimmered. I should have felt nothing, but I did. I felt seen. Every hidden thought, every cruel word, every moment I turned away from love was there, shining back at me like fire trapped in glass. And then I heard it, a voice that did not come from around me, but from within everything that existed. It was not loud, it was not kind, it was pure. It carried both mercy and judgment. It said my name, slowly, clearly, like it had always known me. He called my name in the dark. In that instant, I knew the one I had denied all my life was real. I felt the weight of it crash through me, my arrogance shattered. My logic was ash. There was no argument left to make. Only awe, only terror, only love. When his light began to rise, it burned through the shadows like dawn through smoke. I tried to hide, but there was nowhere to go. The light was everywhere, within me, around me, above me, and still, I could not look away. It knew me. It remembered me. I was not prepared for what he showed me. I was not prepared for what he said, and I am still not ready to carry it. But I must, because I made a vow. When that light sent me back, when breath returned to my body and I realized I was alive again, I promised I would speak. I would tell what I saw, what he revealed, about the mark, about the choice that is coming, about the line already being drawn between light and shadow. Even now, every word feels like fire on my tongue. I do not say this for glory. I do not say it for belief. I say it because it is truth, and truth burns to be spoken. I stand here trembling, knowing that some who hear this will mock it as I once did. But that no longer matters. I saw what waits for those who live asleep, and I saw the mercy that still reaches for them. The time of silence is over. The time of disbelief is ending. The time is now. He called my name in the dark, and he is calling yours. My name is Swami Arjuna, and before the night that unstitched me, my days were a practiced loop. Alarm at 5:47, the blue glare of a phone greeting me like a minor god, a cup of bitter coffee climbed with sugar I always promised to quit, the commute through a river of brake lights where I kept score of who merged without signaling, office keycard, fluorescent ceiling, a calendar tiled with meetings that solved nothing, and an inbox that multiplied like worry. I spoke in metrics and deadlines. I argued in links. I slept with light under my eyelids because I could not face the dark without a screen. I wore intelligence like armor. I sharpened it on debates. At night, I drifted through forums where faith was a piñata, and I swung hard. I told myself I was saving minds from superstition. The truth was simpler. I did not want to be held accountable by a love that could see me. I preferred the dull mercy of algorithms that never asked me to change. Most mornings tasted like metal. I would stand at the sink while the faucet ran, watching the water spiral into the drain like time, thinking about the next thing I needed to conquer. Promotions, purchases, projects that never felt finished. I kept a to-do list of small salvations, new running shoes, a better chair for my back, a supplement that promised focus, an app that promised calm. I had no space for prayer, but I believed in tracking steps. I had no altar, but I believed in uptime. And still, beneath the confident sentences and heavy books, a quiet emptiness moved through me like fog. It followed me into elevators. It sat beside me at lunch. It waited on my pillow. When conversation paused and laughter settled, it hummed. I told myself emptiness was just a cost of ambition. I called it maturity. I called it realism. I called it anything but what it was: hunger. I measured love in convenience. I apologized with gifts. I could say, "I'm here for you," with one eye on the clock. The people who needed me most learned to ask for less. I learned to call that healthy boundaries. The foreshadowing arrived like static. Small things at first. A light in the hallway that flickered when I stepped beneath it, then steadied when I moved on. Dreams that thinned the curtain of morning and left a taste of ash in my mouth. I began waking at 3:13, then 3:14, then 3:15, each time with the same sensation that someone kind and terrible was seated just beyond my field of vision, waiting for me to admit I saw him. I would reach for my phone, for the tiny sun of the screen, and the feeling would retreat to the corners like a tide that knew how to be patient. Once at my desk, the power dipped. Monitors blinked. The air conditioner paused in a long-held breath. In that hush, I heard the rhythm of my own heart like a hand knocking from inside a door. The lights returned. The inbox refilled. I told myself the grid was old and the building cheap. I did not say out loud what I felt, a gaze, not accusing, but attentive, as if someone had leaned in close to hear the truth of me. I kept repeating my secular liturgies. Productivity is virtue. Comments are communion. Outrage is meaning. I curated my attention into a museum of strong opinions. I hung my skepticism like a portrait where everyone could see it. People said they admired my clarity. I said I admired it too. I did not tell them about the evenings when I stood in the shower longer than necessary because the sound of water was the only thing that drowned the ache. I did not tell them how silence pressed against the windows once the music stopped, how the apartment felt full of a presence I refused to name. The world I chose was gray by design. Neutral, safe, the color of offices and airports and parking garages. I loved its predictability because it asked nothing of my soul. It asked only for competence and a steady hand. It let me keep my secrets. It let me pretend I had none. On the train, I studied faces, tired eyes lit by phones, mouths set in the soft line of endurance. We were all worshippers of the glow, pilgrims to a temple we could carry in our pockets. I felt at home among them. I felt alone among them. When the doors hissed open at my stop, a cold wind crossed the platform, and for a second the station lights buzzed and dimmed, and every advertisement seemed to breathe. In the glass I saw my reflection stutter, and I thought, absurdly, that the world had blinked. I did not pray, but sometimes, just before sleep, words would rise in me like a tide I did not summon. Return to the fire. I shook them off like a dream you do not want to follow. I said aloud to the ceiling that I was tired. I said I needed rest. What I needed was repentance, though I would not have used that word. Repentance sounded like defeat. I preferred improvement. Improvement does not require surrender. The emptiness did not argue with me. It accompanied me. In conferences, it sat in the second chair of panel discussions. On dates, it poured wine politely and made every story sound rehearsed. In the grocery store, it watched me choose perfect fruit, thumb the skin of an avocado, place it back, choose again, certain I could optimize my way into joy. There were warnings I could have heeded. The dream where I was walking down a corridor of doors, each labeled with something I had accomplished, and at the end a final door with no handle, only a strip of light underneath, like a breath. The morning I woke with the sentence ringing in my head, not in my voice, not in any voice I'd heard before. The time is now. The time is now. The time is now. I laughed in the shower and called it motivational residue from a podcast. I did not ask who was speaking. In those days I loved cleverness. I loved being right. I loved the quiet power of withholding forgiveness, the secret height it gave me. I did not want a God, because a God could ask me to lay that down. I did not want a Savior, because rescue implies danger, and I wanted to believe I was never truly at risk. I did not want a shepherd, because I preferred my own path, even when it led me in circles. Still, something watched. Not the ceiling camera at the office, not the neighbor at his window, something without edges. When I crossed the lobby each night, the security lights would wake in order as I passed, pools of pale gold blooming under my steps. It should have comforted me. It made me feel exposed. I hurried. I looked for shadows because I was sure the light would accuse me. Instead, it only revealed me, and that was worse. A friend asked if I ever felt lonely. I said no. Loneliness is for those who need others. I needed only purpose. I spoke this as if it were bravery. It was fear translated into discipline. It was hunger wearing a tie. I cycled between productivity and numb reward, streaming, scrolling, buying, planning. The body can go a long time on empty calories. So can a soul. But eventually the hands begin to shake. Eventually the eyes begin to avoid mirrors. Eventually the night grows loud with a name you do not want to hear, and once you hear it, you cannot pretend you did not. He called my name in the dark. I did not answer. I turned up the volume. I filled the room with blue light. I told myself the glow was enough. Return to the fire, the phrase insisted, and I said, later. The time is now, the sense insisted, and I said, tomorrow. He called my name in the dark, and I drowned him out with cleverness. I tell you this without decoration so that you understand the distance I had traveled without moving. I tell you this so the pivot that came next is earned, so you do not mistake what happened for spectacle. It was not spectacle. It was mercy. It was interruption. It was a love I had refused, stepping into my gray world and striking a match. If you had known me that week, you would have recognized the shell of me, the tidy desk, the neat calendar, the small talk delivered in perfect tone. You would not have seen the fissure running under everything I said. You would not have noticed how my hands hovered over the keyboard for a second longer, listening for a sound that did not belong to keys. What waits ahead is the unmaking and the making. What waits ahead is the door without a handle, and the hand that opens it from the other side. I did not seek it. I did not deserve it. I did not believe it could happen. Still, it happened. Still, he came. And when he came, the dull world shifted toward gold. The static resolved into a note so pure it hurt, and the life I trusted like law ended mid-sentence. I did not run. There was nowhere to go. I did not argue. There was nothing left to win. I only stood inside the life I had built and felt it crumble gently, as if a great tide had reached my feet and said, "Enough now. Enough." He called my name in the dark. Return to the fire. The time is now. He called my name in the dark, but it was not a whisper I could ignore. Not this time. Not in this moment. I didn't see it coming. That's the strange part. It was nothing grand, no warning signs, no foreshadowing from the sky. I wasn't on a precipice. I was just sitting there. Another afternoon, another hour of half-focus, my fingers pressing keys, my mind running its loop of logic. The world was the same. It always was, until it wasn't. The pain came suddenly. One moment, my chest was fine. The next, a burning, a crack, as though something inside me had snapped all at once, releasing a flood of heat that consumed everything. It wasn't just physical. It was as though my very soul had been torn open. My body was screaming, but my mind couldn't catch up. I couldn't think, couldn't reason. It was too sudden, too much. I remember the sound of my heartbeat, racing, desperate, erratic. It pounded in my ears like the drum of war. My vision blurred, twisted like a reel of film caught in a storm. The edges of the room peeled away, and I felt the walls of the office, the hum of the air conditioning, the weight of the world, become nothing. They became ghosts. And then, silence. Everything went silent. No air, no sound, not even a breath. I could still hear my pulse in my head, but it was no longer a pulse. It was the ticking of a clock, faint but growing louder. It felt like time itself was holding its breath, as if the world was waiting for me to understand something I had been too stubborn to learn. My heart stopped. The machines didn't tell me that. My body did. The rhythm that had kept me tethered to this world, the thing that made me feel alive, ceased. It was a simple, quiet moment, but in it, the universe exhaled. I could feel it before I saw it. The shift. The point where And in that calling, I felt myself drawn toward him, not as an accuser, but as a lover, a savior who had been waiting for me to remember. The touch of his voice was soft, but it was enough to shatter the years of doubt and pride I had built my life on. And as I stepped through the threshold into what felt like an eternal now, I knew I could never go back. And yet, in the stillness of that place, I was filled with something I couldn't name. Something that was both sadness and joy. It was love, but it was also a deep sorrow for every moment I had wasted, every life I had turned away from, every whisper of truth I had ignored. But even in that sorrow, there was something else. Hope. Hope that though the world had been blind, it was still waiting. Waiting for the return of what had been lost, what had been forgotten. The time was not over. It had only just begun. He called my name in the dark, and when I opened my eyes, I knew it would never be the same again. He called my name in the dark, and in that calling, I felt it, an invitation deeper than anything my mind had ever known. There was no sudden burst, no violent rush into something unknown. Instead, it was like stepping through a curtain of air that had always been there, but I had never seen. The space I entered was both vast and intimate, like an eternal breath, spacious enough to contain all the stars, but close enough to hold me, as though the very walls of this place were made to cradle my soul. I cannot describe it in the way a man describes a room. It was not a room. It was not a structure or a shape. It was a presence, a boundless feeling that stretched out forever, and yet felt nearer than my own heartbeat. The air itself was alive with something. The closest word I have for it is warmth, but it was not warmth like the sun or fire. It was warmth like knowing, like being held by the universe itself. It was a hum, soft and endless, but it was not sound. It was a vibration that was the source of everything, of thought, of time, of love. The light, too, was beyond what any earthly eyes could comprehend. It wasn't bright or blinding. It was golden, but softer than gold, translucent, flowing, no sharp edges. It was light with texture, as though it could be touched, as though it had form. It bathed me without burning. It filled every inch of me, as if this light was already woven into the fiber of who I was, and all it needed to do was touch the thread and unravel it. And the music. There was music, though it was not music in the way we understand it here. It did not come from instruments, nor from voices. It came from the air, from the space itself. It moved like waves on the ocean, sometimes fast, sometimes slow, but always constant. It was the sound of eternity stretching into forever, the sound of time without limit, without end. It was the first song I had ever heard, and it filled every corner of my being. I did not need to understand it. I did not need to listen for it. It was just there, as natural as breathing. But the most profound sensation, the one that holds my heart still even now, was the presence of the others. Souls. I could not see them at first, not with eyes, not with the vision I had known on earth. But I knew them. I knew they were there. They surrounded me, not in the way we understand proximity, but in the way something eternal surrounds you when you are finally stripped of every false layer you have created. They were not strangers. They were not faces I could place, but they felt familiar, old, as though I had known them before time itself And the most
began.
remarkable thing, there was no need for words. There were no exchanges of conversation, no questions, no language. But I knew everything. We knew everything. It was as if there were no secrets. Nothing was hidden, not in the deepest parts of me, nor in them. There was no judgment, only understanding, only recognition. It was a shared knowing that transcended speech, a wordless communion that only the soul could experience. We did not need to speak, we just knew. And that's when the voice came again, not loud but clear, reverberating inside my soul, as if everything I was had been written on a scroll that could now be read without effort. You were brought here to remember. The words floated in the air, but they did not feel like words. They felt like the pull of a tide, like a river that carries you before you can resist. I understood them instantly, but the weight of them took time to settle in my chest. I was here not to learn, not to be taught, but to remember. Something I had forgotten, something I had left behind. I had never understood the power of remembrance until that moment, standing in the presence of eternity. It was as if the very essence of my soul had been searching for this place, this moment, this memory. And now it was being given back to me. I felt the sweep of something holy, approaching. At first, it was distant, barely perceptible, like the distant sound of thunder on the horizon. The air thickened with anticipation, but it was not a tension that caused fear. It was an invitation to something greater. The sensation grew in such a way that my very being stretched toward it, pulled by an invisible force I could not name but recognized instantly. He called my name in the dark. And now, in the midst of this celestial silence, this vast knowing, I felt a shift. The space around me began to pulse with a soft intensity. It was as if the very light, the music, the presence of these souls, everything was waiting for something that I could not see but could feel coming closer. There was a movement now, a direction, as if the space itself had suddenly decided that it was time for something to happen. Time did not exist here, but in this moment I could feel it. Something was about to be revealed. It was not fear that rose in me. It was awe mixed with the aching beauty of this moment, this place that held no judgment, no hurry. It was only this, the knowledge that I was standing at the threshold of something sacred. I was being led closer to a truth that would unmake me, would remake me, would change everything. And in that moment, just as the atmosphere thickened with presence, I felt a shift in the very rhythm of the air, as if the very pulse of eternity was within me now. I wasn't outside it, watching it unfold. I was part of it. And what was about to unfold, what I was about to witness, was more than I could comprehend. It was more than light, more than music, more than love. It was the final truth. I had come here to remember. I had come to understand. And yet, in that sacred moment, it wasn't just me who was remembering. The entire fabric of this existence, the light, the sound, the souls gathered around me, it all began to remember too. You were brought here to remember. It echoed, not in the air, but in the fabric of this place itself. And it became clear. This was not just about my soul. This was about every soul. The entire universe was returning to something it had forgotten, something we had all once known and left behind. A memory deeper than time itself, and I, along with all those gathered in that space, was part of it. There was no going back from this moment. There was only forward. There was only the final revelation. And as the anticipation ripened in the air, I knew the light that was coming, the truth that was unfolding, would not be kind, but it would be merciful. It would be life. It would be the only life. And I was about to be shown the heart of it. He called my name in the dark, and I answered. He called my name in the dark. And as I stood there, suspended between what I had known and what I was beginning to see, something shifted in the space around me. The air, thick with anticipation, grew heavier, yet softer, as if the very atmosphere was preparing to breathe in unison with me. There was no sound, not even the hum of eternity that had filled the space before. The stillness had become sacred, alive. Every heartbeat, every breath, every thought seemed to dissolve, leaving only the pure essence of being. And then, the light. It condensed, no longer the diffused glow that bathed me, but a presence. It shaped itself, not with form, but with essence. I could not say it appeared, because it was not like anything I had ever seen. It simply was, more real than reality itself, yet not bound by it. I felt it before I could grasp it with my senses. The very space around me quivered with its weight. It was more than light. It was love, a love so vast, so complete, that it broke through the barriers of my own heart, barriers I had erected, fortified, and hidden behind for years. It was perfect awareness, a knowing that saw through every pretense, every defense, every lie I had ever told myself. It did not accuse, it did not judge, it simply saw. And in that seeing, I felt both exposed and understood in ways I had never imagined. I did not need to look to know it. I felt him, not with my eyes, but with my very soul. The air hummed with his presence, vibrating with something ancient, something eternal. And I knew that it was Jesus, though he did not appear to me in any way I had imagined. It wasn't about the shape he took. It was about the presence that filled the space. A presence that enveloped me in an unspoken embrace, a warmth that was not of this earth. I could feel his understanding, not like a mere thought, but like the deepest part of my being had always known this moment was coming. It was not the face of Jesus I had once seen in pictures. It was not a form I could describe. It was the very embodiment of love, pure, unbroken, unconditional. And as I stood there, in the silence of this moment, I knew there was no need for words. His presence spoke louder than anything that could be said. And then he spoke. The words did not come from his mouth. They seemed to rise up from the very essence of the space, from the light itself. They were not heard in the way one hears sound. They were felt, absorbed, like a current of truth that ran through every fiber of my being, shaking loose all that had kept me from knowing him. You were brought here for a reason. And with those words, everything I had ever lived, every moment I had ever experienced, unfolded before me, not as a movie, not as a judgment, but as a series of moments illuminated with his perfect, unrelenting compassion. There were no flashes of fire, no angels casting judgment, no condemnation, only his gaze, and in it, understanding. I saw myself as a child, struggling to understand love, seeking it in all the wrong places. I saw myself as a teenager, broken and lost, hiding behind walls I built with bitterness and doubt. I saw the moments I turned away, the relationships I destroyed, the fears that led me to abandon what could have been healing. I saw the words I spoke in anger, the thoughts I kept locked away in the dark corners of my heart. But there was no anger in the seeing. There was no harsh judgment, only compassion. His love wrapped around each of these moments, like a hand lifting them from the darkness into the light. He did not say, "You failed." He did not say, "You were wrong." He said, "I see you, and I love you still." And with each moment he showed me, I felt a breaking inside. Not a shattering, but a soft, slow unraveling. The layers I had so carefully constructed, the walls I had built to protect myself from the pain of the world, began to fall away. There was no force, no violence in it. It was simply his presence, his love, that made it impossible to remain the same. I could feel myself collapse inward, but not in despair. I felt my heart open wide, as if everything I had been holding inside, the sorrow, the guilt, the shame, was finally allowed to leave. I was finally allowed to feel it. And when that weight left me, when the last remnants of my pride and fear dissolved, something else filled the space. It wasn't a thought, it wasn't a decision, it was a release. an opening of my soul to the truth I had hidden from for so long. It was a freedom so deep, so pure, that I could hardly breathe for its beauty. I had been living a lie, and in this moment, in the presence of his love, I knew it. I knew the lie was over, and he did not condemn me for it. He did not turn away. He did not say, "It's too late." He simply said, "You were brought here for a reason." And in that reason, I began to understand. I was not here by chance. I was not here by my own strength. I was here by grace. Every mistake, every regret, every failure I had carried with me was now swept away in the flood of his mercy. I was here not to be judged, but to be restored, to be remembered. His words vibrated in the air around me, as if they were written into the very fabric of existence. You were brought here for a reason. And as those words sank deep into my soul, I understood. The reason I had come was not just to witness his love. It was to be transformed by it, to be cleansed, not by my actions, but by his mercy, to stand in the light of his forgiveness and know, for the first time, what it means to be truly seen and loved anyway. And then, as if this moment had been waiting for me to accept it, I felt the call rise from deep within me. It wasn't a voice. It was a knowing. It was as if my entire being had just remembered why it existed: to serve, to carry the truth of this moment into the world, to share the mercy I had been given, to share the love I had seen. It was a call not to mission, not to action, but to be, to live in the fullness of who I was created to be, to carry the light of that moment into every dark place I had ever been. I had been brought here for a reason, and now I knew the reason was not for me to hold this truth to myself, but to let it pour out, to be a vessel of the love that had healed me. I had been shown the love that defies all understanding, and now it was my turn to live it. He called my name in the dark, and I answered. He called my name in the dark. And as I stood there, caught in the light that had unfolded, the very fabric of the moment began to shift again. Not in a way that startled, but in a way that deepened the stillness, the sacredness of what had already been shown to me. I could feel the weight of all that had passed in that space, the love, the cleansing, the brokenness, the peace, and yet there was still more to come. I had barely begun to understand the depths of what I was witnessing. There was something else waiting to be revealed, something that would shape my entire life from this moment on. Jesus, standing in his silent glory, extended his hand, and in that touch, I felt time itself stretch and bend, as though it too was eager for what was to unfold. His presence, that perfect awareness, intensified, becoming something so pure, so filled with sorrow and love that my heart stammered to match the depth of it. And then, with the same quiet authority, he spoke again. No words, no thunder, just the truth made flesh, reverberating through every particle of my being. You were brought here to see. The very air around me began to pulse with his will, and I saw it, the world, but not as I had seen it before. I saw humanity, not in its striving, not in its beauty or its flaws, but in its future. The world had changed, somehow, irrevocably, and as I watched, I felt it unravel, piece by piece, until the truth that had been hidden beneath the surface was exposed in full light. At first, I saw unity, a world that had come together, a world that was no longer divided by borders, religions, or ideologies. It seemed perfect, everyone in harmony, no violence, no hatred. I saw cities filled with technology, innovation, growth, and promise. The world had solved its problems, it seemed. There were no wars, no hunger, no poverty. There was only a collective peace, a peace that felt like victory, like the final chapter had been written and the human race had found its ultimate truth. But then, in the quiet places of that vision, I saw the cracks, small at first, but growing, like threads beginning to pull apart. The unity, the peace, the promise of global togetherness. It was a facade. Beneath the surface, a darker current flowed. There was no true freedom in the peace that had been won. There was only a new kind of bondage, wrapped in the glitter of progress, disguised by the brilliance of technology. The world was controlled, not by force, but by choice. The illusion of freedom held in the palm of mankind's hand. It was as though the world had agreed to surrender its freedom for security, for comfort, for convenience. And in the center of this new world, I saw the mark, the symbol that had been whispered about for generations. It was not a mere chip, not a device, not a number. It was a choice to align with something, someone, that would promise peace and safety, but demand allegiance. It was a false light, not one that illuminated truth, but one that blinded, one that made its followers blindly accept what they were told to be good. It was a surrendering of one's soul for the sake of comfort, for the sake of fitting in, for the sake of never feeling alone again. I saw humanity smile as it surrendered its freedom. The world seemed joyful, even content, yet beneath the smiles, beneath the shiny facades of buildings and technology, the people were no longer free. They had chosen to align with the system that ruled them, to surrender their very will to a force that promised them everything, but in return took everything. It promised security, but it demanded obedience. And in their eyes, I saw a hollow place, a place where their spirit had once been but had now quietly slipped away. They had traded their birthright for a temporary peace, and now they were empty. As I watched this unfold before me, I felt something deep within me tremble, a sorrow so profound that it felt like the earth itself was weeping. And there, amidst this vision, I saw Jesus' face shift, not with anger, but with sorrow, the kind of sorrow that only someone who truly loves can feel. His gaze pierced through the illusion, through the false peace, and he looked upon this lost world with a grief that cut deeper than any blade. But his sorrow was not condemnation. It was love, unfathomable love, for those who had chosen this path. And in that moment I understood. He was not there to punish them. He was there to wake them up, to show them the lie before it consumed them completely. His heart ached, not because of their choices, but because he knew that they had forgotten who they truly were. They had forgotten the light within them. They were chosen, he whispered, and I felt the weight of those words like a gentle hand upon my chest. They were chosen, he repeated, and in that moment I realized the truth. They had not been forgotten. We had not been forgotten. Even in the midst of their surrender, of their self-imposed chains, they were still loved, still called, still chosen. But the time for waking up was running out. I felt it, the urgency of the moment, the trembling in the air, the knowing that this truth could not be held back any longer. The time for speaking was upon me. The time for the world to know the truth was now. The truth must be told, Jesus said, and with those words, the world around me shattered. The vision that had been so peaceful, so perfect, began to unravel. Faster now, like a garment torn at the seams. The cities, once filled with light and promise, dimmed. The faces, once smiling, became blank, empty masks. The systems that had promised peace began to reveal their true purpose. Control. Not peace, not freedom, only control. And the price was not just material, it was spiritual. I saw the future, and I understood. The mark was not a device, it was a choice to accept the world's offer of comfort and security, but at the cost of one's soul. To accept a system that would strip away your freedom, your connection to the divine, your very birthright as a child of God. I felt my heart shudder with the weight of it. This was not the future I had imagined. This was not the dream of unity I had wanted to see. But this was the truth, and the truth must be told. It cannot be hidden any longer. Jesus stood beside me, his face filled with compassion, his heart heavy with love for the world, for all of us who had lost our way. And as the vision faded, the last words I heard, whispered into the air around me, were, "The world must be shaken before it can be restored." Those words echoed in the silence of my heart, resounding like a bell that would never stop ringing. They were the final truth, the truth that I was now entrusted to carry. The world would not be saved by its own strength. It would not be saved by technology, by security, or by comfort. It would be saved only by a return to the fire, a return to the truth that was always there, always waiting, always calling. He called my name in the dark, and now it was my turn to call the world to awaken. The truth must be told. The world must be shaken before it can be restored. He called my name in the dark, and as his voice echoed through me, a new awareness, like a rising tide, began to fill the space I stood within. The sorrow and grief of what I had witnessed began to melt away, not in the way the darkness vanishes when the sun rises, but in a more profound way. It wasn't that the pain was erased, it was transformed. It was held in a light so pure that it could no longer hurt me. For all the destruction, all the lies, all the illusion, there was now the possibility of something else, a deeper truth, a greater hope, a new beginning. It was a shift, as if the weight of the past had been placed on the scales of eternity and had been found lacking. It was a shift from judgment to renewal. In that moment, a vision unfolded before me. The world I had seen was not the final picture. The darkness was not the end. There was more. There was always more. The earth, once shrouded in lies, now began to shimmer with life. Real life, born from the hearts of the people who had once been blinded. These people, the ones who had chosen the false peace, the ones who had given in to the lie, they were waking up. Not with rage, not with bitterness, but with something deeper. Compassion. I saw them, small groups at first, scattered across the world, glowing with the fire of truth. Their faces were filled not with fear, but with courage. Their hearts, once broken and weary, now beat with hope. They were not loud, they were not grand, they were humble, simple, but their light was undeniable. And I saw the way they moved, how they offered forgiveness, how they extended their hands to heal, how they stood together, not as separate nations, but as one, united in their love for the truth they had finally remembered. The vision unfolded further. I saw scenes of families reconciled, relationships restored, communities rebuilt from the ground up, not with walls and divisions, but with unity and understanding. And as I watched, I felt it in my bones. This was not a distant dream. This was a reality waiting to be born, a world waiting to be reborn. And then I saw the earth itself, cracked and broken, but now mending. The once dying land grew green again. Rivers once polluted began to flow clean. The sky, once stained with smoke and ash, now shimmered with the glow of hope. The world was healing, and it was healing because the truth had begun to spread, heart to heart, from one soul to the next. I saw the light growing, not in the sky, not in the clouds, but in the hearts of those who had been awakened. The power of this truth, the truth that had always been present but had been hidden, was now spilling over. It could not be contained, and it would not be stopped. And as the vision washed over me, a single thought pierced through my mind: keep speaking. Jesus' voice was not loud, but it was impossible to ignore. The command was not harsh, not a demand. It was a call, quiet, urgent, burning with love. He entrusted me with this message: keep speaking. And I understood. I understood that this was not just a vision for me. This was a message for the world, a message that would not remain silent any longer. It was a call to every soul, to every person still in darkness, to awaken, to remember, to return to the truth that had always been buried within them, waiting for the right moment to emerge. The light around me began to rise, to shine brighter. It was not like the light I had seen before, soft and golden. No, this was the light of creation, of renewal. It was fierce, it was bold, and it was radiant. It was the kind of light that burns away the lies and reveals the purest truth. It was the light of destiny, and it was coming. I felt it deep in my chest. It was no longer a question of if the world would change. It was a certainty. It was no longer a matter of whether humanity would awaken. It was inevitable. The light began to grow so bright, so intense, that I could no longer bear to look at it directly. It filled the space until I could no longer see the boundaries of where I ended, and it began. It was a light that was not of this earth, but a light that was for this earth. It was the light of divine hope, of redemption, and I felt it all around me, filling the space between us, between everything. And then, like the rising of the sun after a storm, it began to break through the clouds. The world I had seen, the one that was broken, divided, lost, was no more. In its place, there was a new vision, a world restored, a world where truth had not been lost, but found. I felt myself being lifted, not away from the earth, but deeper into it. The world I had seen in that vision, glowing with the divine fire of truth, was becoming real. I knew then that I was part of it, that we all were. The future that was unfolding was not a dream of perfection. No, it was a vision of redemption. A future where we had to choose the light, where we had to embrace the fire, where every soul that had once been deceived would choose to rise, choose to be transformed, choose to live in the light of truth. And the most powerful thing of all was that the world wasn't waiting for someone else to fix it. The world was waiting for us, for each of us to answer the call, to return to the fire, to speak the truth that had always been hidden in our hearts. And as the light swelled around me, I knew that the time for silence was over. I had been given the truth. I had been shown the way. And now I was entrusted with the mission to speak the truth, to share what I had seen, to awaken those who had fallen asleep. The time had come, the time for the world to rise, the time for the truth to spread from heart to heart, from soul to soul. And as I felt the light grow brighter, the words echoed in my mind. He called my name in the dark. Now it was time for me to call out to the world, return to the fire. Me, but knowing that I already knew, I had been given a message to carry, to speak, to share, to spread. But the moment I had returned, the moment my spirit had re-entered this world, I knew I was no longer in the same place. I had been changed. The world had not. I tried to speak. I tried to share what I had seen, the vision, the truth, the message. I wanted to tell them. I wanted to tell anyone who would listen. But no one would listen. They couldn't. The words were like flames in my chest, burning to be released. But each time I opened my mouth, I was met with confusion, with ridicule, with blank stares. The friends I once knew, the people I once trusted, they backed away from me. They couldn't hear the truth. They didn't want to hear it. They had grown comfortable in their ignorance, in the illusion that everything was fine, that everything was under control, and I had become a threat to that comfort. I saw their eyes, the way they shifted, the way they turned away. They didn't want to hear what I had seen. They didn't want to face the reality that I had been shown. So I was silenced by their refusal. I became the crazy one, the delusional one. I tried to share the message, but the walls closed in tighter, and the nightmares began. Not the kind you wake from, not the kind that dissolve with the morning sun. These were different. These were the kind of dreams that clung to you, that followed you into the waking hours, that gnawed at your very soul. I saw faces, distorted, twisted in ways I couldn't explain, lurking in the shadows. I saw them in every corner of my room, in the reflections of glass, in the hum of the machines. There were things following me, not in the physical sense, but in the spiritual. Shadows that moved with purpose. Shadows that did not belong to the world I had once known. They whispered, always whispering, like they knew something I didn't. Like they knew that the truth had been released, and it could not be stopped. And the interference, at first it was small, just a flicker, a glitch on the screen. But then it grew. Phones stopped working. Messages disappeared before they were sent. The television would flicker in the middle of the night, a strange distortion that could not be explained. The world, it seemed, was trying to stop me from speaking, from sharing what I had learned, from telling the truth. I heard the voice again, that voice that had spoken to me in the light, that voice that had called my name in the dark. They don't want this truth to spread. It was a whisper, soft but clear, and in that moment I understood. There was a resistance in this world, a force that wanted to keep the truth hidden, to keep the illusion intact, to keep the world asleep. But I could not be silent. I had made a vow. I had been shown the truth, and now I had to share it, even when it felt like the walls were closing in, even when it felt like I was losing everything. I knew the cost. I understood that sharing this truth would not be easy. It would not be welcomed. But it was my duty. It was the only thing that mattered now. I had been given a gift, yes, but with that gift came a responsibility, and I could not turn away from it, not anymore. I remember the quiet desperation in my chest, the ache to speak, to be heard, to make someone, anyone, understand. The isolation that followed, the rejection from those I had once trusted. It was crushing. It felt like the weight of the world pressing down on me, but in the midst of it, I could hear his voice again. Keep speaking. That was all. No explanation, just a command that would carry me through the darkest of days, a command that I could not deny, even if I wanted to. I was bound to it now, and I knew that I would speak, no matter the cost. It was obedience that called me forward, not arrogance. It was the weight of the truth, heavy and burning in my chest, that pushed me to share what I had seen. It was love that made me speak, not love for the approval of men, not love for the acceptance of this world, but love for the truth, for the love that had been shown to me, for the mercy that had pulled me from the edge. And so I stand here, alone in a world that does not want to hear, but I will not be silent. I cannot. He called my name in the dark, and now I must call out to the world. The time is now. The truth must be told. He called my name in the dark, and now I call to you, directly, with the same urgency, with the same fire that has burned through my soul. Look at me. Hear me now. You are not here by accident. You did not find this video by chance. You have been chosen to hear this, and I ask you to listen with everything you have, for the time is now. There is no more waiting. There is no more time to ignore what has been placed before you. The war is invisible. You will not see it in the headlines. You will not hear it in the noise of everyday life. It is not fought with guns or bombs. It is fought in your soul, in your choices, in the quiet decisions you make every day. It is a war of belief, of allegiance, a war where the weapons are not physical but spiritual, a war fought in the hearts and minds of every man, woman, and child, and it is real. It is more real than the ground beneath your feet, more real than the life you are living now. Every day the battle rages, and every day you must choose. The mark, the thing I saw, the choice that is being handed to every soul on this earth, it is not some future event. It is happening now. It is not just a device or a symbol. It is a choice to pledge your allegiance to a system that will promise comfort, promise security, promise safety. But at what cost? What will you give up in exchange for this temporary peace? What will you surrender in exchange for this false promise of safety? The mark is not something you can escape by avoiding technology. It is in every decision you make, every time you choose comfort over truth, Every time you choose convenience over righteousness, every time you turn your back on the divine fire within you, you are making the choice. You are accepting the mark. It is a daily, quiet decision. And the longer you wait to wake up, the further you fall into the trap. Comfort will deceive many. That is the tragedy. The world will tell you that comfort is the way. The world will tell you that the easy path is the right one, the one that leads to happiness, to fulfillment. But it is a lie. Comfort will numb you. It will make you feel safe, but it will keep you from waking up. And in that numbness, you will surrender. You will surrender to a world that is controlled, a world that is manipulated, a world that is asleep. I was once like you. I once lived in the illusion of comfort. I once thought that if I just worked hard enough, if I just followed the rules, if I just played the game, everything would be fine. I thought I could avoid the pain, avoid the discomfort, avoid the truth. But the truth was always there, waiting for me to see it. And now it is here, waiting for you. You have found your way here, not by accident, but because you are being called to see. You are being called to hear. The time is now. Look at me, truly look. This is not a game. This is not a warning for someone else. This is for you. The truth must be told. It must be shared. You are chosen to hear it, to know it, to carry it into the world. You are chosen to be awake in a world that is asleep. You are chosen to speak when the world says be silent. You are chosen to rise when the world says to stay down. I tell you this because I know what it feels like to be asleep, to live in a lie, to walk in blindness. I know what it feels like to run from the truth, but I also know what it feels like to wake up, to feel the weight of eternity pressing against your soul, to hear the voice of truth calling your name in the dark. And when that happens, you cannot go back. You cannot ignore it. You cannot pretend you didn't hear. The time has come for you to make a choice, for you to decide whose side you are on. The truth must be told. There is no other way. This is not about fear. This is not about manipulation. This is about awakening, about rising up, about remembering who you are and who you were always meant to be. You were chosen to hear this. You were chosen to see the truth. And now, you must choose to act. The mark is not some future event. It is happening now, in every decision you make, in every choice to follow the easy path, in every moment you turn away from the light that is calling you to rise. The time is now. And as the words echo in my heart, as the music rises, quiet, urgent, full of life, I feel the weight of what is to come. I feel the cost of this choice, but I also feel the freedom that comes with it, the freedom to stand in truth, the freedom to be awake, the freedom to walk in the light, no matter how dark the world may seem. And so I ask you, will you rise? Will you choose the light? Will you speak the truth, even when the world refuses to listen? Will you keep speaking? Because the truth must be told. The time is now. He called my name in the dark. And now, as I stand at the edge of this moment, where everything I've seen, everything I've experienced, everything I've been shown has led me here, I am left with a single haunting truth. The mark is not a symbol. It is intention. You have heard it in the whispers of your soul, in the quiet moments when everything fades and you are left with only the truth staring you in the face. It's not something etched in your flesh, not something in a system or a number. It's what you choose to align with, the allegiance you give to what is false, what is fleeting, what is comfortable in the world. But the truth is not comfortable. The truth calls you into the fire. It calls you to stand when the world wants you to bow. The mark is a choice, and it will be made in every moment you choose to give your soul to the illusion of peace over the peace of truth. But hear me now, for there is still time. Salvation is still open, no matter how far you've wandered. No matter how many times you've turned away, the door has not closed. The invitation is still there, waiting for you to reach out, to return, to come home. It is not too late. You are not beyond redemption. The world would tell you otherwise. It would tell you that you are too far gone, that the path you have walked is too dark, too deep, to ever find your way back to the light. But that is a lie. The light is always there. And the final proof, the one thing that will remain when everything else fades, is love. Not the love the world offers, not the love that comes with conditions, with expectations. No, the love that remains, the love that is real, that love is boundless. It is patient, it is kind, it forgives what cannot be forgotten, heals what seems beyond repair. It is the love that calls you home, even when you are lost, even when you have turned your back. I have felt that love. I have seen it in the eyes of the one who called me by name. I have felt it wash over me, purify me, even when I didn't deserve it. That love does not judge. It does not condemn. It only calls. It only waits. It waits for you to come back, for you to turn and say, yes. Yes to the truth. Yes to the light. Yes to Him. Return to the Gospels. Return to truth. Return to Christ. These words have been etched into my soul, and they echo within me still. They are not just words. They are a call, a beckoning, a lifeline. In the silence of this moment, I feel the weight of them. They are not just for me. They are for you, for everyone who hears this, who feels the stirring of truth inside them. It is not an accident you are here. You have been chosen to hear this, and now you must choose. You must choose to walk in the light, to stand in the truth, to return to the fire. The world will not wait for you. Time will not stop. But the love you seek, the peace you long for, it is here, waiting, ready to embrace you. As the ambient hum of eternity surrounds me, I realize how small this world feels in comparison to the vastness of what I have seen. The world spins on, unaware, while the truth calls out to those who will listen, to those who will remember. There is a world beyond this one, a world that is not controlled by the lies we tell ourselves, and that world is waiting for you to wake up, for you to see it, for you to become a part of it. It is not too late. I stand here before you, not as someone who has figured it all out, but as someone who has been shown. I have been shown the way back. I have been shown the truth, and now I am compelled to share it. Not because I have all the answers, but because I know what it is to be lost, to be blind, to wander in the dark. The truth is here. The light is here. The love is here. Return to the fire. Return to the Gospels. Return to Christ. He called my name in the dark, and now I call to you.